welcome everyone. Today we have Jeff Trenton from Respectful Living and Washtenaw Optimum Wellness. And today he's going to do a cool summer salad for us. Before he gets started, I would like to say you can hold your questions to the end. You can put them in the chat, or as we do Q&A, you can ask your question. And I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I actually have two recipes for you today that you guys should have gotten the links to them beforehand. They're in the chat, and we'll put them in the chat again at the end in case you missed it. So we're going to do a couple of different cold salads today, which is kind of fun. I'll show you how to do those. But first, I want to give you just a little bit of information on inflammation. So I am going to share my screen. And can everybody see that okay? Naisha, is that visible?
Yes. And if you want to just hit the start from the beginning for the slide. Let's see. Slideshow. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, very good. So, I wanted to talk to you just very briefly about reducing inflammation with diet. And we'll talk a little bit about my personal experience and just a little bit of science on what we know is inflammatory and what we know is anti-inflammatory foods. So if you know anything about me, you may be aware that I had really bad edema in 2015 and 2016. I struggled with it for about a year and a half. I was in and out of doctors' offices and the hospital. They gave me all sorts of pills. Nobody said I could fix it with diet, but they certainly knew what I ate because I bragged about the barbecue restaurant that I had at the time. You can see the picture of my ugly foot that wouldn't even fit in a shoe because it was so swollen all of the time. And that was what I dealt with every day on top of being morbidly obese. And then you could see just a basic change in my diet over 20 months. And just when I did an anti-inflammatory diet, the only thing I did was stopped eating beef, chicken, and pork, cut my dairy consumption down to minimal, and increased my fruit and vegetable intake. And the year and a half struggle with edema went away literally in 3 weeks. So it was pretty dramatic. And I stayed on that diet for about 3 months. And in that roughly 100 days, I lost 80 pounds. I stopped using a CPAP. My blood pressure went to normal. My blood glucose went to normal. All of these things started happening to me. And I'm like, man, there's something to this. So I did additional research and decided to ditch meat and dairy and do whole food plant-based. And you can see the transformation process over 20 months from a 348-pound barbecue restaurant owner to a 180-pound fit vegan. So big difference. And that was really not vegan junk food, not the stuff the Beyond Burgers and things like that, but really truly whole grains, fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, and the like. So that's what I've been doing. Haven't looked back. It's been over 5 years now. I'm still not protein deficient, by the way. And we can talk about that another time, which we will be talking about later in this 6 months or 5 month series. We'll be talking about protein needs in older adults. But you could see that it was a big difference for me, and I couldn't be happier for that decision. So what is chronic inflammation? There's inflammation of the joints, and there's inflammation, and we all get that. We all get, as we age, a little bit of arthritis, some achiness, and that type of thing. And that's pretty normal. There's only so much wear and tear you can put on your body before it starts to talk back to you. We're not spring chicken anymore. So inflammation is basically a response in your body to an unwanted substance. And that can be from any number of toxins, the obvious are cigarette smoke or alcohol. But what most people don't know about it is it's often from an excess of fat cells. Now, atherosclerosis is also a product of inflammation, and it's inflammation of the arteries. It's the fatty buildup of cholesterol-rich plaques in your body, thinks that those are abnormal, and it wants to sort of coat it and wall it off from the rest of your blood cells, and that's what stops up our arteries and potentially can rupture and cause blockage and strokes and heart attacks and that type of thing. So that is the end product of the what your body views as the toxic fat cells and whatnot in your body. So it's important to reduce our fat content, and it's important to stay fit and trim. Now, the foods that we're talking about today that are very, very inflammatory in particular is red meat and dairy. And nobody likes to hear bad news about their diet. They only want good news. If I told you can eat as much bacon as you want and you'll live to 110, we'd all like to hear that. And you can eat, Americans eat on average of something like 37 pounds of cheese per person per year. I think that number went up to 43. But the reason that those red meat and dairy in particular are inflammatory is a molecule that is named NEUG5C. What that is oleic acid. And I don't want to go into a huge amount of detail because we want to get to the food, right, about how this works. But I want to give you a resource, and we put the link to it in the chat. This is Dr. Seahalt. It's actually pronounced Schwelt. Dr. Schwelt he has medcram.com. He's an excellent lecturer. His videos are very informative. He breaks it down. He can do a better job explaining to you oleic acid and inflammation than I can. And plus, we have a little bit of a limited time today. So I would encourage you to watch his video on the oleic acid and the NEUG5C and get the information directly from a scientific researcher and lecturer than me. So that said, I am going to stop our screen share right there. All right. And you can all see me. So let's talk about the food. So you're going to stop seeing my ugly face and start seeing this beautiful food I've got down here. There we go. So the first one that I'm going to do for you is a cucumber and bruschetta pasta salad. Now, it's a pretty simple recipe in that we dice tomato, cucumber, and I'm going to use about 4 real nice garlic cloves in it. And some fresh basil that just came off of my plant in the garden. You can see here that it's not doing great this year. I don't know, it's not doing as well, but I'm getting crazy tomatoes and cucumbers. Now these cucumbers are already peeled, and so I'm going to keep this pretty simple. And what we're going to do is, we're just going to dice these all up. And you see I'm using a serrated knife for the tomato. I'm going to put this in a bowl and try not to drip the tomato juice all over the place. Now, one of the things that I like about this recipe, and there was a slide in the in the presentation that I forgot about. I was talking about the anti-inflammatory superfoods, and you can get that information from Harvard Health. I did provide a link to that in the chat, and we'll provide those again right in the end. But basically, it's a variety of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and spices primarily, and some nuts, and like walnuts are especially anti-inflammatory. And then a variety of seeds are very good for inflammation because it's the alpha linoleic acid in them that we find to be helpful to inflammation and good health. So there we have a little diced tomato. And I don't think I cut through quite enough. That's why I use a serrated, right? Get that skin that is on there. And then I've got some fresh garden cucumber. I don't know how many gardeners we have in the group, but the cucumber has been amazing this year. And I just cannot complain about the amount of cucumber that we've been getting. I like to use cucumber in salads. I like to eat it, like sometimes I'll take tomato slices and I'll take cucumber slices and maybe a little couple thin pieces of red onion, and I'll put those on a plate real nice and drizzle a little balsamic vinegar over it. And that is kind of a nice little side dish. If you don't feel like going through and doing a whole lot of work, that's a pretty healthy option. Plus, like I mentioned, this year, the cucumber and tomato in my garden has been just phenomenal. I don't know what it is. Oh, the squash is doing really well too. I decided to do an eggplant this year, and currently I have on one little eggplant, I guess I call it a bush. It's a couple of them in a big pot. I think I have right around 8 eggplant growing on that, which will be fun to do later this year. So with our basil for this, I don't know if you've done much with fresh basil. You could use a dry basil, but anytime you're using dry spices, it tends to be kind of dry in your mouth and that type of thing. And you want to avoid that, I think, if you're not going to cook it. And this is a cold salad, so I prefer personally to use fresh. And if your leaves are real big, you can actually roll them up, and it makes it a little bit easier to cut. And cilantro, by the way, is the same way. You can take your bunch of cilantro or parsley or whatever, and you can roll it up together and use that to cut. So we're just gonna go. I've got I don't know, roughly, there's probably about 6 leaves there. Probably do just a little bit more here of this basil. Oh, it smells so good. That's the thing about fresh basil, is it just smells wonderful. Now, while we're doing that, give me 1 second. I'm going to show you something with this. If you looked at the recipe ahead of time, I have this as both a salad and as a bruschetta, if you're Italian. And the reason why is that somebody did something like this for me many years ago, and they did it on toasted bread. I think they toasted a little cheese on it. And I just couldn't believe how good it was as a bruschetta. So I came up with a recipe that was a little healthier, didn't have all the oils in it and that type of thing. So what I'm doing is I'm adding 4 nice sized garlic cloves, and I'm using a garlic press. And so that's coming out real nice there. These garlic cloves have already been peeled, and I took the little ends off just to make it easier during this, and you don't have to watch me peel garlic, right? And so we're going to mix this in here. And a quick, by the way, on your garlic press, you get that rinsed out right away and take this out of here with the tip of your knife real quick. It won't stick in there and you won't have such a problem with that. But I'm going to need to use that again. The other thing that I'm adding to this is a little bit of, I'm using a champagne vinegar. This is actually an infused champagne vinegar that I made. And it can be pretty expensive. You could do a white balsamic vinegar or something like that in here. We're going to use just about a tablespoon and a half in here. Now, what you'll notice about this is that the tomatoes are so juicy, you could almost drain these if you wanted to, but I happen to like this. We're going to mix this in and it's all going to kind of marinate together. So just fresh basil, garlic, fresh tomato, fresh cucumber right out of the garden. And you can see that's how pretty that is. Now I'm going to add some pasta to this in just a minute, but let me show you something else you can do. I just toasted a little bit of bread here. So we have a little bit of toasted whole grain bread, and you just spoon this on here and serve it. But I'd let this sit for a while before you serve it, just so the garlic and the basil sort of melds in with that. But let me tell you, this is delicious. Okay. That is so good.
We're all jealous.
So this is the pasta that I'm using today. This is a gluten-free. It's just made by Barilla. There's lots of gluten-free options out there. I really like the Jovial brand, which you can actually find at Walmart of all places. But I'm using a chickpea rotini today that's gluten-free. And I'm going to just add I've added the whole box in here. We'll just give that a mix. And once it's all mixed up, voila, you have a gorgeous summer pasta salad, just like that. It's really very easy, very simple recipe. As long as you're using fresh ingredients in it. So the other thing you could add on this is black olives. I've done that a number of times. That's a favorite for me when it comes to a cold pasta dish. And voila, there we have it. So I'm going to just set that aside to chill. And guess what I'm having for dinner? Okay. Next up, we are going to get into our other dish. Now, this can be done a couple of different ways. This is a forks over knives recipe, and the reason I wanted to use this is twofold. I love it, and you can take it with you anywhere, and I'm heading on vacation. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm taking this with me over to Holland for a little bit of biking and a little bit of kayaking. So again, we have fresh garden zucchini. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green in this. We're going to dice up. Now, you can use white onion. This is kind of a sweet white onion that I'm using. What they suggest in it is shallots. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to dice this up real fine. And by the way, when you're dicing onion, I've had people ask if there's a right and a wrong way to cut vegetables. The wrong way to cut vegetables is to not cut vegetables. Should always be cutting fresh vegetables. But seriously, the wrong way is to try and cut this on a round. You want it laying flat, because if that slips on you, you have a chance of hurting your fingers. Now, this is the type of knife that I personally prefer to use, and the reason being is that I can hold it like this, and I can just chop, and I have a lot of control. This isn't a real big knife. I have a lot of control with this. So as a chef, this is the type I've always used, just because the type of dishes that I do has been to be a little bit more tedious and less in bulk. So I'm going to go ahead and put these right in my bowl. Probably half on the floor too, but we're not going to let you look at that. Okay. We're going to add the garlic. And this would be the equivalent of about 2 cloves. The other one was about 4. I got 2 small ones and 1 decent sized one here. And again, don't forget, you want to get that cleaned out right away, or that just sticks in there, and so then it's a pain in the butt to wash, and then you don't want to use it. And they do have, minced garlic already jarred up and ready for you in the produce section if you prefer to do it that way. Now, this recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of vinegar, and so I'm going to use this is an infused champagne vinegar, and what this happens to be infused with, this one is strawberry and a little bit of mint. It was one that I had created and bottled. Because I like a little bit of that mint flavor when you're working with. I can get it to come out, and got my strawberries need to be strained out of here, I think. All right. And then the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of honey mustard, and I'm just going to eye this literally. I'm not using anything special here except just, this is a Walmart honey Dijon. And you just want to kind of get all of this mixed up real good. And this is what's going to flavor your dish. Now, I know I make this look easy, but mind you, there was a bit of preparation beforehand to get us to where we're at right here. So I'm not going to lie about that. This is just canned kidney beans that we're going to use. They are rinsed. They're a low sodium. They're organic. I think I bought these at Bush's. And then I do have fresh garden beans. Now, these have already been prepped and blanched. They were frozen. I just thawed them for this. And I'm going to go ahead and put my beans in here. And I'm going to add my kidney beans in here. And then what we're going to do with this zucchini, again, you're better off cutting everything. See how that wants to fall on me. Flat instead of on the round. You have less of a chance of cutting yourself. And I'm going to just cut this real thin because we're putting raw zucchini in here. And so you want to try and have that nice and thin so it's tender. This is pretty tender. This is the yellow one is a real young zucchini. Again, fresh out of my garden. So it is that time of year for me. And I don't know about you, but if I'm out and about and I'm gardening and getting out in the wilderness and that type of thing, I always feel so much better in the summertime versus being cooped up and wanting to just eat. And yeah, so we are happy that it's summer and getting the bounty from the garden. So again, on this green one, we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to get a little bit better angle here for you to see this, just so you can see that I'm just cutting this nice and thin. And I think I just need a little bit more of this. Great thing about these things, I don't know what you do if there's too much. Sometimes I just make it all, and sometimes I just save the little bits for later and I throw it in a stir fry and that type of thing. So we're going to put this in here. Now, the forks over knives recipe calls for rainbow Swiss chard. I think I need a bigger bowl for that. Luckily, I have it, but I want you to be able to see this a little bit better. So the forks over knives recipe calls for a rainbow Swiss chard, but I don't have any. I have regular Swiss chard that this is fresh out of my garden. I have a ton of Swiss chard, but this regular Swiss chard is pretty woody to eat raw. So you'd want to steam it if you're going to do that. Another option, if you can't get a hold of rainbow Swiss chard, is this is just an organic spinach, you know, another one. Now the recipe with forks over knives calls for about 8 cups. That's a little overkill in my opinion, but I am going to use quite a bit in here. Giving myself a spoon as well. And then we're going to take this and just spoon it over. And they, if you want you want this more saucy, you can always do that. I'm actually going to add just a little bit of extra honey mustard to this. I don't know how much vinegar I want. And then we are going to just, again, toss it, get all the flavors worked in, get that honey mustard and that vinegar worked in. If you don't feel like it's working through enough, you know, it's kind of like you've ever made a Caesar salad, you know that it doesn't take that much dressing to make it go a long way. So you just want to get all of those leaves and zucchini coated. I want that onion that I cut up separated in there. And I'm missing something from this, and I just realized what it is. Give me 2 seconds. This recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of chopped walnuts. So we are going to chop some walnuts. And you can see I'm making a mess as I go. I need my sous chef to clean up behind me when I'm just trying to do this in front of the camera, right? All right. Double check my recipe here. And that only other thing that they call for in the recipe is a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. So I am going to salt and pepper this to taste. I like quite a bit of pepper, especially when it comes to green beans. I just whenever I do a green bean casserole for the holidays, I put tons of pepper in it. And that might be too much for some people, but for me, I absolutely love it. So we're just going to get that all mixed in. Walnuts are in there. The beans and everything is in there. We're going to just toss that up. Now I could have probably chopped this. Some of that spinach is a little big. It would have been better to chop that just a little bit more. And serve. Now, between these 2 dishes, I don't know which one I prefer, but they're both good. Another option for this, if you wanted to wilt your spinach and have it cooked in a little bit, you could do that. Another thing I've done is cubed potatoes and then roasted them in the oven and then tossed the potatoes in. The honey mustard dressing with the potato and the green beans and squash is really good together. Dr. Andrew Weil has that recipe on his website. It's about the same as this, though, so no need to go through extensive. So there's our 2 summer salads, and look at that. We have time for Q&A. So that was quick and easy, but you know, I make it look easy because I chop pretty fast. I had all the stuff prepped ahead of time, so you know, that's to my side. So if you were to do both of these on your own, besides the blanching of the green beans, because that takes some time, or you could literally use frozen green beans and just thaw them out and toss them in. You're looking maybe at an hour prep time to do this. By the time you get your cucumber peeled and you get your tomatoes ready to go and you cook your pasta, get your garlic peeled. For me, it took me 20 minutes to put those together, but everything was pretty much ready to go. So not difficult, very satisfying, very anti-inflammatory. The Harvard Health link that I gave you has a whole list of kind of anti-inflammatory superfoods by the season. So you can take a look at that, and I'd encourage you to do that. I would really encourage you to use Dr. Schweltz. Look at that video that he did on oleic acid. It's important to understand that and know what you're putting in your body and how it affects it. I had no idea. I went about my way. Hey, I did low carb for years, and I did the barbecue restaurant in Saline for over 6 years. And when it was hard on my health, but when I figured out that food is medicine and you can fix all of those chronic things, just about, there's some hereditary things, and you can't kill cancer with vegetables. You can to a degree, but not really. If you got cancer, you're not going to eat your way out of it. But the fact is that your gut responds to it. It likes it better. It likes the whole plant foods. And when you have a healthy gut, you have healthy everything else. So get your fiber, eat your fruits and vegetables. Another great tool for inflammation is turmeric. Turmeric, some people call it. Turmeric is fantastic anti-inflammatory properties. A lot of people just add it to their dishes, but it is a little bit bitter. I personally don't like the taste of turmeric. So what I do is I literally add about 2/3 of a teaspoon to a little 2-ounce juice glass. I put a little lemon juice and lime juice in there, add black pepper to it, a little black pepper in the curcumin, the stuff that's in the turmeric, will increase its bioavailability or absorption ability in your body by something like 2,000%. It's pretty ridiculous. So I usually put that all together, stir up, shoot it like a tequila shot, hold my nose. No, not quite. But just get it done and over with. But that is great for inflammation. Most adults have absolutely no side effects to that, maybe skin irritation, but generally there's no side effects for it. You can do about 2/3 of a teaspoon for an average size adult 3 times a day. That'll reduce inflammation big time. So use the food as medicine approach. I promise you it works. There's been clinical trials that have been randomized and controlled for whole plant food diets on osteoarthritis as well. And they find it does really help. So add turmeric, use lots of fruits and vegetables, fresh spices, fresh garlic, eat your fruits and vegetables every day, and the inflammation will start to go down. And a side note is for every pound of weight that you lose, you take 4 pounds of pressure off your knees. So it's important to drop that weight. There's only one way to lose weight, one way and one way only. There's a variety of different things you can eat. You can eat Twinkies and lose weight, believe it or not. You can eat rice and lose weight. You can do the keto diet and lose weight. You can do plant-based diet and lose weight. It's calorie deficit. You have to be taking in less than you're burning every day. The only way to lose weight is in a calorie deficit. Don't let anyone try and tell you it's the carbs, it's the this, it's the that, it's the too many calories in your diet. So try and slim down. Here's a little interesting thing on losing weight. For every gram of carbohydrate, it's 4 calories. For every gram of fat, it's 9 calories. So you're getting more than twice the calories per gram for gram in fat. So cutting the fat really helps. Your arteries will thank you as well. And so that's just a little side note. If you want to slim down, eat low calorie foods, focus on calorie density. Things in the plant kingdom that are very high in calories is nuts, nut butters, avocado, coconut. You know, those faux meat products, they're full of coconut oil. They're very calorie dense. Oils are extremely calorie dense. People don't realize that 1 tablespoon of oil is 120 calories and something like 32 fat grams, I believe. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I think that's right. So cutting your consumption of oils helps, and eating, you know, really whole plant foods like we're talking here. Now, this chickpea rotini is very good for you. It's not refined flour, it's chickpea flour, and they're literally chickpeas that are dried and crushed down. So good for you. It's not stripped of its nutrients. And that's about it. I think I'll stop talking there. We've got a little time if people have questions. I'll re-drop those links in the chat if anyone needs them, to the Harvard Foods, to the video by Dr. Schwelt, and then the 2 recipes if you need them. And we'll open to questions if you have any.
I have a question that was here in the center. Someone wanted to know, how do you make your vinaigrette?
So if you're talking about the champagne vinegar that I use.
Oh, vinegar.
Okay, so it's not a vinaigrette. So
Okay.
most people with a vinaigrette is vinegar and oil. And like I just mentioned, oils just really aren't that good for you. It's a source of tremendous calories. They're very calorie dense. But this particular vinegar was quite expensive for me to make. I had to order a case of champagne vinegar and infuse it. So I added the strawberry and the mint to this, and I let it age for well, this is probably a year. So I do personally, I like the aged champagne vinegars. I do that, give them away as gifts and things like that as well. But you can do any type of vinegars. The forks over knives, now I recall, they called for a white balsamic vinegar. So you'd have to buy that. And then, you could use a white balsamic, you could use a champagne, any type of a light vinegar is what you'd use in both of these recipes. And then there's the regular balsamics too, which is fun. And like I mentioned on the tomato, cucumber, red onion, where I just lay those out on a plate and drizzle a little balsamic. I'll use an elderberry or something like that, and it's just delicious. So
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a question. Since the Mediterranean diet recommends things like avocados and olives and olive oil, I could understand that, using too much olive oil would be extreme and add a lot of calories, but I'm thinking that using some in moderation would be healthy.
So it's not, when you say some in the kicker there is moderation, right? Americans have a difficult time moderating anything. So when I use olive oil, if I need to put some for something I'm sauteing, I usually use water, but I literally put a dime size drop of olive oil in a pan and I wipe it in with a paper towel. That's moderation. But going like this, like most people do, and they sprinkle their stuff with olive oil, that's not moderation. So you do have to be careful. And when you're talking about your purpose for eating, right? Are you trying to get calories? If you need calories, are you underweight? Eat avocados and walnuts. But anyone who's trying to slim down, oils, avocados, and nuts and nut butters and things like that are better to refrain from, to get yourself in a calorie deficit. And that was its reference. But are those things in and of themselves healthy? Now there's research on olive oil, and most of it is industry funded, but there is research that shows that that it can be healthy, that there's some nutrients in it that are very beneficial to us, that have an antioxidant effect. But on any of those studies, what they're doing is replacing olive oil, replacing butter with olive oil to tell you it's healthier. Well, duh. So you got to be careful about the research on that. What they have found is in larger quantities, they have done studies on what they call flow mediated dilation, where they literally scan your jugular vein, right? So what's the postprandial effect? In other words, what's the effect on your arteries after consuming a meal? Now, they did a lot of olive oil with these folks, and they found that the arteries stiffen and they're not pumping, they harden with olive oil. So when you're talking about, can it injure your endothelial cells and cause arterial damage? It absolutely can in large quantities. So you do have to be really careful about it. In America, and you look at the obesity crisis, gosh, in the 40s and 50s, there wasn't a fryer on every corner. Now people have them in their homes, and every restaurant's got it, and every convenience store's got it. And that's just a lot of oil that people are taking in and not realizing it. So I think you have to be very moderate with it if you're going to use it. Olive oil is healthier than most other oils, so not a bad choice. And the Mediterranean diet isn't bad either. I say you don't have to eat the fish, because in my view, there's an awful lot of toxins in the ocean, including microplastics and mercury. And one word is Fukushima. That just happened not too long ago. So I refrain from eating fish personally, but fish and chicken are a whole lot better than eating red meat, and especially processed meat. So, it's the red meat that's very inflammatory. Processed meat, we know, causes cancer. It's a group 1 carcinogen. Chicken and fish is certainly better. And if you choose to do the Mediterranean diet, you're doing better than 90% of the US. So.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Other questions?
No, but I have a comment. Your description of how you use olive oil has made me rethink how I've been using olive oil.
Very
Like
difficult.
you said, you shake so much in because you're supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's nothing that says you're supposed to. And if you use a good quality nonstick pan, you really don't need to use it. There's very few things that you have to use oil with. Is it difficult to cook without oil? It's not. It does take more time. You have to turn the temperature down a little bit. You have to slow down your cook time on it. But we want everything fast. And like restaurants too, it's almost impossible to ask a restaurant to do an oil-free meal, especially if you want that in 20 minutes, because it's the oil that speeds up that cook time on their grills and in their pans and whatnot. And I can tell you from experience, without the oil, people would have been waiting a long time for hash browns and things like that. We use a lot of oil in the restaurant business. So people don't realize how much they're getting, especially if they're eating out often. And then if you're just going like this, you're taking your olive oil bottle and you're going back and forth a bunch of times, yeah, that's a lot. And I mean, if you just calculated the tablespoons and look at, you can look up the calories and fat per tablespoon of olive oil and know that it's just super calorie dense. And that does have an effect both on the amount of calories you're getting every day, especially on the calories you're getting every day. And if you're using too much of it, it certainly can be harmful to your arteries.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a personal question. So
Yes.
do you take vitamins, or do you just get your vitamins from your food?
So I take a B complex personally. If you're eating a plant-based diet, you really need to be taking a B12. But I take a B complex just because it's got a little bit more variety of B vitamins, and that can help with stress and help with inflammation as well, and help with sleep cycles. So I choose to take a B complex. And then if you're not getting enough sun, people need to be taking vitamin D. And I've discussed that with your group before. Vitamin D3 supplements are cheap. It's really difficult to overdose on them. You can easily take 4,000 IU daily, and that's okay if you're not getting outside. If it's winter months and it's gray out, you need to make sure you get enough vitamin D. Other than that, I don't take any other vitamins. I know that leafy greens have iron, and iron absorbs extremely well when you add vitamin C to your diet, which I get plenty between the tomatoes and oranges and things that I eat. So no, it's not really needed to take a whole bunch of supplements. Let me think of the site. So if you were eating a plant-based diet and you wanted to know more about vitamins, the veganhealth.org, which is a UK organization, I know their dietitian, and he does a really nice job explaining things and telling you, kind of the facts on that. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Gail.
If you're vegan, how do you make sure you're getting enough protein?
So I have a really easy answer to that, and that's that you never, ever have to worry about it. We will talk more about protein needs in older adults, and I forget the date. Maybe Naisha can tell us what date that is. But here's what a lot of people don't realize about protein. I don't think it should be a food group. The dietary guidelines for Americans, really with the food pyramid and that type of thing, started, like late 80s and then early 90s. But it wasn't until they had pressure from the meat and dairy industry that they started including protein and protein as a food group. And if you look at other countries' food guides, they don't have protein front and center. That's very much an American phenomena of protein. We're absolutely obsessed with it. Now, if you think about this, every single plant has every single amino acid. And I mean that literally. All 9 essential that we need from our diet, all 20 essential amino acids that sustain life. Think about the 4,000 herbivorous species on the planet that eat only plants, somehow survive. A 300 to 600 pound silverback male gorilla doesn't eat any meat, and he's full of muscle and doing just fine. Eats about 40 pounds of vegetation a day. But you literally every plant food has all of the amino acids. And the whole thing about you got to combine proteins if you're doing a vegan or vegetarian diet, that is absolute bunk. If you're eating a variety of plant foods, you don't even have to worry about it, because here's how protein works. You don't need to eat protein to get protein, just like you don't need to eat your fingernails to grow fingernails, or you don't need to eat hair to grow hair, even though I don't have any. But the way that protein works in our body is what you eat is denatured or broken down in your gastrointestinal tract and GI system, right? Denatured, completely separated. Your body doesn't care where you get those amino acids. Those are broken down in your body, and mostly in your liver and in our own cells is where protein is created. So you don't need to eat protein to get protein. You need a few essential amino acids that will form in chemical bonds in your body on its own. Amino acids only. We need to get away from the protein conversation, because I think it's quite ridiculous. So people can talk about protein-rich foods, and you got to have protein-rich foods. Let me put this before you. A infant child that drinks only breast milk doubles their weight in a year. And on only breast milk that is 1% protein, 1% protein, they do just fine. We do too. We don't need to worry about it, because your body takes and breaks those down and assembles the protein chains with polypeptide bonds. So hope that answers your question.
Well, no, but you led to another question.
Okay.
It's my turn again.
Go for it.
So do you complement your foods to get complete amino acids such as beans and corn,
So I did
wheat
just,
and peanuts, wheat and nuts?
so your body takes and denatures any proteins that you're eating, right? Takes it, and if it needs it later, it'll store it. And so do you have to like be really conscious about combining certain foods? No, because again, every single plant has every amino acid and all of the essential amino acids. Your body will, I mean, we literally could eat like a deer as long as you get enough calories. If there is absolutely no protein deficiency unless someone is anorexic or has a condition called cachexia, which is like from cancer and AIDS and that type of thing, or is very older frailty where they're just not able to get enough calories. That's the only place we see any type of protein deficiency. Otherwise, true protein deficiency is what you would see on the infomercials for feeding the hungry children with their eyes bulging and their tummies distended and sunken in. And that type of true malnutrition is where you see protein deficiency. It does not happen in the Western world, not unless there's disease related.
I've heard many over the years, vegetarians and vegans, say they went back to eating meat because they were protein deficient.
And I would say bullshit.
Well,
you
I'll
know,
say that.
I bet I know 500 vegans, and we get our blood work done every year, and I'll guarantee they're not protein deficient.
Okay, but
Protein deficiency is literally just wasting away from malnutrition. If they're not eating enough calories, you know, maybe they had an eating disorder and it wasn't, they were vegan, they had an eating disorder and we're losing weight as a result. That can happen. And you'll see that with vegan and vegetarian diets. Sometimes the people that will go on those are people with eating disorders.
well, it could also be their imagination. They feel something and they say that. But back to the amino acids. So I always pair beans with corn or brown rice. And
Well, we all eat a variety of foods, right?
so it's as long as you're eating a variety is what's important, but not pairing each meal, making sure it has a complement.
No, you don't need
I'm
to.
from the 60s, right?
Yeah, no, that is really old thinking. That, you know, they used to think that you had to have complement proteins, and it's not the case. You know, like I said, now, if you want to look it up, Dr. Christopher Gardner did a very good, he's from Stanford University, did a very good paper and he showed the actual amino acid profile and of all these plants, and brown rice has about the same amino acid profile as chicken. So, you know, why are people not concerned about not getting enough protein when they're eating chicken when brown rice is about the same? So yeah, it's just not something you need to worry about. If you're getting enough calories, you're getting enough protein. And if you think you're losing muscle, the only way to keep muscle is by moving your butt, is by exercising and staying active and that type of thing. You could eat 200 grams of protein a day and not gain any muscle because you got to work out to get that. So more protein doesn't mean better muscles.
Yeah, I know that. So,
Okay.
and then I'm sorry, I'll go last. I have one more question.
You're okay. We've got a couple minutes left. Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned at the beginning some substance that was in dairy. I don't remember the name of it.
So it's NEUG5C. It's oleic acid.
NEU.
G5C.
Okay.
Otherwise known as oleic acid.
That's what I was remembering. Is that in all dairy? Like eggs and yogurt and cottage cheese?
So I don't know about eggs because eggs aren't technically dairy, aren't cow dairy. It's from a chicken. I don't think eggs do. But yes, all cheese, cottage cheese, yogurts, milks. Yeah.
Anything dairy.
Yes, anything.
Thank you. That's
And
bad news. That's bad news because it's a good way to not eat meat. if you're thinking about protein, but if you're not thinking about real protein, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, again, all plants have protein. It has all the amino acids your body needs to put together the protein that your body needs, the building
Yeah.
blocks of health.
That's
Your body doesn't care where it gets it from.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
Do you have time for one more question?
Sure.
Okay, I am, lactose intolerant, and I have a lot of pain on my knees, so that salad that you made was with the pasta. I like that. I'd like to get that recipe and start eating that. I think that would help me.
Yes.
And I take vitamin B12, and I do take 81 milligram aspirin every day.
Mhm. Yeah, so the inflammation and joint pain in the knees is as long as you try and stay lean, right, and take that pressure off, but you do need to, it helps to work the muscles around the knee, and if you're having pain, I would strongly recommend a physical therapist versus just turning to drugs. So I'm going to put one more link in the chat, especially for Gail. That is, whoops, I don't know if that came through. No, that is concerning protein and why I don't think it should be a food group. And it has all of the science there for you, Gail. So feel free to take a look at that article. You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Thank you. This is all very interesting. I appreciate your responses.
Well, we'll be here second Fridays for the next through December here, November or December. Oh, I forget. December. Thank you. All right, so we'll be here a while. So thanks, and I'm going to head on vacation unless anyone has anything else.
I just want to say, I hope this recording is posted on the website because I think people should listen to it.
Yes, it will be recorded.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jeff.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. It was nice to see you.
Don't turn it off, Nisha. I want to get this website.
Okay. Okay. Well, Jeff,
Thank you.
I'll make sure that she gets the information. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. And this will be recorded so everyone can get it later. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.